Thanks for joining us, Congressman. It's always good to have you with us.
Great to be with you.
Just in the past 100 days of the Trump administration, take two, what are your first impressions so far? How's it going?
Well, I think very well. If you look at what has happened, and it has been a fast-paced 100 days, especially the early part of this. Every day it was people who would walk up and go, "Hey, did you see this?" And by the time I said, "Well, I've seen that," something else happened. So, but in that time, look, how much the 100-day difference can be. The control at the border that is going on, the amount of people crossing the border has been reduced tremendously. We have had over 100,000 illegal immigrants deported, criminals, many of them with the strong criminal and gang element. We also have had a large drop in fuel prices. Gas production is up. We're seeing multi-billion-dollar companies coming back to the United States and or expanding. I think their job levels, we're told yesterday, is 300,000 in the first quarter. I think that was what those numbers are. The fact is that I think that the first 100 days of President Trump have been more productive than 4 years of the last president.
You mentioned fuel prices, but tariffs and the cost uncertainty have the combination of the Federal Reserve saying just this week that the committee there, in their words, quote, judges that the risk of higher unemployment and higher inflation have risen.
The job numbers came out yesterday and didn't say that. And you know, we can say about the tariffs, but you do understand that this morning we signed a deal with the UK that is bringing things home. We have already had an in agreement that is yet to be signed with India for zero tariffs on steel and zero tariffs on automobiles. I think the only real problem that we have is China, but we need to get China online because they've been eating our lunch for a long time.
Right, but that brings me to my question, though, because everyone from Mike Pence to Warren Buffett to back when he was alive, Ronald Reagan, they all said protectionism and high tariffs are barriers to free trade. Of course, these barriers apply to countries far greater than just China, and that by lowering these barriers to trade, we went about bringing about the greatest rise in American wealth and job creation that the world has ever seen. If they were right, how do you explain why Donald Trump's theory on economics is right if Warren Buffett and Mike Pence and Ronald Reagan and all those guys are wrong?
Well, I can tell you that we're going to have a watch and see attitude because there are things that are coming home, deals we've not made with companies or countries before. I believe that if we have a zero tariff, remember, they can be taken off as quick as they can be put off. And I believe that this president uses them as a bargaining chip. And if you want to see why he is doing what he's doing, you can probably read a book called The Art of the Deal. And you will always see him work, and he will, where he wants to get to this level, he will offer or show that he's no, I want to do this. And then when they come down about halfway down from that, he's actually gained ground. So we'll have to watch and see as we move. I don't think the tariffs will be on very long. I think you'll see a lot of negotiations going on, and I think it'll be better in the end.
There's a lot more I want to ask you about that, but you just mentioned that deals can come and go just as quickly as they were put in place. Some of these deals are only possible because Donald Trump ripped up the first deal that he made the last time he was in office. The USMCA,
there were two. That it was the case with Canada and Mexico.
Right. So is America a reliable trade partner?
Well, you know what? We have made new trade deals every 3 and 4 and 5 years based on each president as they come in. And something very interesting that you might want to know is, so the way these presidents are able to do this is, one, because of our Commerce Act, but also in the Commerce Act, the President's Act asked for trade promotion authority so they can actually work the trade deals.
You seem to have interest in these policies. Do you think that you, as a member of Congress, or your colleagues, the members of Congress there, should have input on trade deals, or are you happy to just cede power? Are you happy to just give that power of trade back to the president?
We have succeeded to every president since, as far as I know, since Dick Nixon, the trade power. And here's why. Because if you say, oh, no, you're going to go make the deal, then you're going to come back to Congress and you're going to have to be approved by Congress. Then what you've done is you've made it to where they can't negotiate in good faith because they've got to go back to a board. And that's why we give trade promotion authority. And it is really wild that, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have argued sometimes that they don't want to give trade promotion authority to a Republican, but do want to a Democrat, and back and forth. But
Sure.
but it is a case where we do give that authority to the president or the president's persons, the
Sure.
administration.
State representative.
And let me say this: what we have here is one of the few presidents that does work on the deals himself.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to something you're perhaps more familiar with. Are you pleased so far with the cuts the Department of Government Efficiency and Elon Musk have recommended to the Veterans Affairs Department?
Well, let me correct you on that. DOJ did not make cuts in the VA. The secretary has, and you need to put this in perspective because there has only been about 2,000 jobs that people have been let go in the VA.
Not 80,000?
80,000 was in a memo, and I'm so glad you asked that because I want to straighten that out with your listeners. 80,000 was on a memo that was an internal memo that was saying we've had 80,000 since 2019 increase in staffing. When he sent it out to about 40 upper level staff and said, we're going to have a roundtable and we're going to talk about this. I would like to get back to the 2019 levels. That's about 80,000. When he did that, and he has explained that, he did that because if you have a bureaucrat come back to you and you say, hey, we need to reduce staffing, oh, well, we can only lose about 2. Well, then they came to the number. Now, here's the problem. Of those 40 he sent it out to, 20 of them leaked it to the press, which is really wild because I know 20 people that we can actually reduce staffing on now because they leaked an internal memo, and so he can deal with that. But let me be honest about what's been happening.
I want to press on that. You think that a person who finds something that, they work in government, they believe that that thing they found is a grave threat to the impending health care of veterans and that it's in the public interest, so they hand it to a reporter. You think that person should be fired?
Yes, I do. And here's why. Because this was a new administrator coming in, getting ideas together. Okay, those ideas could have been negotiated at the table, talking with staff. And when you're an upper echelon staff, you have to have those people who are your upper echelon staff understand that they're work with the administration to try to achieve the goals. Now, the goal is not to cut any veteran services. The goal is to make sure that if there is waste in the VA, we clear that out. It is also very important, and I want to say this too. Remember, the VA was not created for bureaucrats. The VA was created for the veterans.
Sure.
And I'm going to tell you that if the person is out there and their main focus is themselves and the bureaucracy, then they need to leave.
I have to trust that anybody who brought this forward did so thinking it was in the public interest, in the veterans' interest.
Well, no.
Why would someone risk their own career?
Because whether you want to believe it or not, when we talk about the inside operation of inside the bureaucracy, not only in the VA, but other agencies, you have people that are more concerned about protecting their kingdom and making sure that's there. And I believe that was this case, because I can tell you this secretary, along with me as the chairman, have said no services for veterans are going to be reduced. And we are going to make sure that they're done even better. Now, over the last 10 years, we have increased employees and the amount we're spending in the VA with no better results. Matter of fact, it's worse. And that's what we're seeing. And that's why we're trying to make sure. But this whole thing of people going out and saying we're cutting veterans, we're not. We're not cutting veterans. And so the amount of people, because this is very important, so far 2,000 people have been dismissed from the VA. Of 477,000 employees, you get more turnover in a week than 2,000 people with 477,000 employees. Okay, so
I take your point about the size of the workforce. If I can, I'd like to focus on the veterans' care, because you said it was not your goal that the care would be diminished or the care would be cut. According to internal VA emails, it does appear that that is the early effect. These emails, obtained by ProPublica, published May 6, just this week, say that life-saving cancer trials at VA hospitals in Pennsylvania are at risk. There are severe and immediate impacts, that clinical trials are stopping, enrollment is stopping in many of these programs.
okay, quote your source again for me, please.
The source is from internal VA emails
Okay.
published on ProPublica. They were obtained, saying that VA officials across the country are warning that the database that tracks cancer resources are not being kept up to date.
Okay, so
Essentially, the big takeaway is there are red flashing lights at VA hospitals across the country where officials are worried about really important health care for veterans with these cuts.
I will say it again. I'm the chairman, and he's the secretary. We have told you we are not going to reduce services. If someone in there has felt like that their area is being targeted, then they're going to put out a memo like that. Now, you can believe that they were doing it for the good of the veteran, but they're not. They're doing it to protect themselves. And I can guarantee you, because I've told my veterans this, I've told my veteran service organizations this, if you see an actual reduction, I had a guy confront me at my office 2 days ago, and I said, tell me where we are, you're seeing cuts or you're seeing something that is not being provided. And he says, well, there's a memo. Well, no, show me where it's doing. It's not just an employee saying, hey, this may happen. I want you to tell me, hey, this is a problem. And I want you to also know this. You do understand that this administration just gave us their budget, and it's an increase in 5% in their budget for the VA. It doesn't really look like they're going to be cutting.
It's 4%, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're going to be cutting. It looks like what we're going to do is we're going after efficiency, as we should. And look, remember this. It's not the VA, I said, is for veterans. It's not for bureaucrats. But let me also say this. Veterans are taxpayers too. And as taxpayers, they don't want to see us waste their good tax dollars and not get the services that they're supposed to get. And we're going to make sure they get those services.
Always appreciate talking to you, Congressman. I know it's been a little bit. You had a lot going on with the transition, being sworn back into the new House, Republicans taking power of the Speaker's gavel back there. A big question a lot of our viewers want to know, do you plan to run for re-election?
I'm running again. Yeah, not for the Senate or any major, just so you know.
Well, since you mentioned it, which Republican should run for the Senate? Which Republican in Illinois can win that race?
You know what? A possibility is Darren LaHood. He's a possibility. I don't know what his plans are, and he hasn't said what his plans are. I would definitely support him. I think it's wild the people are fighting on the Democrat side right now because you've got the governor who has endorsed the lieutenant governor, as well as Tammy Duckworth, who endorsed, which has made Robin Kelly very upset. Raj is not happy about that, and then Underwood. So there's going to be, that's from what we're hearing, that's going to be a four-way race on that.
And as you've watched the voters of Illinois register their favor and their support in races like 2022, races like 2024, what should the indicators be for a politician like Darren Bailey? What should he take away from those results?
Darren Bailey or Darren?
Darren Bailey.
Well, whether it's Darren Bailey or whoever, what you need to know is that if for a Republican to win, you're going to have to win very handedly every downstate county. And you're going to have to, depend on how high you win each one of those counties, you're going to have to win Cook, or you're going to have about 17 to 22% of Cook County to get the win. One of the best guys who knew those numbers better than anybody, because he was just and it was from years ago, was Dan Rutherford, who knew exactly where the numbers had to be and where they had to fall. And the best example of how that is was when Bill Brady ran for governor. If you remember, he won every county but 3. He did not win St. Clair, he did not win Alexander, and he didn't win Cook. But yet he won big in every other county, and he still lost by 15,000.
I just can't seem to tell by reading between the lines on his social media post and his public statements if Darren Bailey wants to run against you, if he wants to run against Governor Pritzker.
And I don't have an answer from him. All I can do is, put myself before the people and run. And if he runs against me, I'll still have to do that again. I hope he doesn't, because that's spending a lot of money in a primary that could be spent around the nation and for general races.
Do you think he could help the Republican Party in Illinois somewhere? And if so, where is he best suited?
That's for him to decide. I really don't know. It is, here, this state is free for anybody to run. All you got to do is circulate the petitions. And I don't know what's out there, or whether he holds off and waits for somebody to walk away someday, or what, to tell you the truth.
How many more of those sides, speaking of that, how many more of these cycles do you have in you?
I don't know. Remember, I'm finishing up my time as chair. We have term limits on our chairmanship. I don't know if you knew that or not. Republicans, after Newt Gingrich, we put 6-year term limits. So I'm going to have to give up the chair after this cycle, or ask for a waiver. And there's only been one waiver given before. And if not, I still want to help during this presidency. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm not 65 yet, but and I still have a lot of experience and understanding of the process, and but I'm not gonna do it forever. I'm not. Matter of fact, when if you'll remember, the dean of the House a couple of years ago was a guy by the name of Don Young out of Alaska, and he died on a plane on the way home. And then and I was pretty good friends with him, and my wife was pretty good friends with his wife. And so I called her and I said, "Don't let me die on a plane on the way home." So I'm not going to stay around that long. I am running this next time. So.
All right. Well, safe travels on the trail. I guess that means we'll see you out there. Thanks for your time, Congressman.